It wasn't the lipstick. It wasn't the scent of unfamiliar cologne in my car. It wasn't the mysteriously reset Spotify cue. It was a sock. A single, inside-out sock. White. Men's size. Not mine. I stood there staring at it for a solid minute, like it might get up and explain itself. Marlo was still in the shower, humming something upbeat and off-key. Something she never used to hum. I didn't touch the sock. I just stared. Because in that moment, everything changed. And the worst part? That sock told me more than 10 months of gaslighting ever could. I didn't confront her. Not right away. No yelling. No crying. No dramatic speeches. I just walked into the kitchen, opened the junk drawer, and pulled out the tiny notebook I hadn't used since college. On the first page, I wrote in block letters, "This is not paranoia." Then I made a list. A real one this time. No more mental notes. No more self-doubt. Tuesday, 6:32 p.m., Marlo told me she was working late. I drove past her office. No car. Wednesday, 8:14 a.m., her phone buzzed. She flipped it over so fast she knocked over her coffee. Thursday, 1:02 a.m., she whispered, "I'll call you back," in her sleep. Friday, 11:39 p.m., she said she was going to her sister's. Her sister posted a story from a concert, alone. By Sunday, I had 4 more pages. And still, I said nothing. You might call that weak. Maybe it is. But when someone's been peeling off little pieces of your reality every day, you stop trusting your own eyes. You stop believing your gut. You start thinking maybe you were crazy. But the sock didn't lie. The sock didn't stutter. The sock didn't tell me I was too emotional or obsessed with control. It just existed, where it wasn't supposed to. So I made a plan. Not revenge. I'm not that guy. Something quieter. More surgical. Because if she was going to burn down our marriage, I wanted to know exactly what match she used. And then she found the notebook. And that's when the screaming started. But not for me. I was outside watering the dying rosemary bush when I heard the bang. Not like a door slam or a dropped plate. This was heavier. A thud with rage in it. Followed by silence that stretched too long. I walked back inside and froze at the threshold to the kitchen. The table was flipped. Like actually flipped, legs twisted, salt shaker shattered. And there she was, Marlo, crouched on the floor in her pale blue robe, holding my notebook in both hands like it was a dead rat. "You went through my stuff?" she asked, her voice dangerously even. I blinked. "Your stuff?" She stood, trembling slightly. "This was in the drawer under the old coupons." "That's my drawer, lol." I wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was surreal. The absolute audacity. She had a sock on my side of the bed, and she was accusing me of violating trust. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. She opened the notebook again, flipped through the pages like they were radioactive. "You've been tracking me," she hissed. "What is this? Are you stalking your own wife now?" That's when I snapped, not loudly, but surgically. "I wrote things down because I couldn't trust my memory anymore, Marlo. You trained me not to. Every time I questioned something, you turned it into a character flaw. You made me feel broken. And now that I have proof, tangible, time-stamped, ugly truth, you're angry at me?" She stared at me, mouth open, no sound. I took a step closer. "Tell me, whose sock was that? Let's just start there." She opened her mouth again, then shut it, swallowed, shifted her weight. All the tells of someone deciding what version of reality they were about to try and sell. I waited. I wanted to see which mask she'd reach for first. "It's probably yours," she said. "Marlo," I said, pointing at her. "That sock was a size 12. I'm a 9, and it had a frayed edge like it had been worn for years. You think I don't know my own socks?" She bit her lip. Maybe it was from the laundromat. Things get mixed up all the time. We haven't used a laundromat in 2 years. Silence again. Not defensive. Not teary. Calculating. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry. She wasn't even scared. She was figuring out if she could still win this. And honestly, that scared me more than a confession would have. Because someone who panics still has a soul. But someone who plots? Someone who scans your face for leverage mid-lie? That's not someone you sleep next to. I didn't ask anything else. I walked past her, picked up my shattered mug, and started sweeping the floor. "You're being dramatic," she muttered behind me. I didn't turn around. Because I knew if I looked her in the eye again, I'd say something I couldn't take back. Instead, I opened a new page in the notebook that night and titled it, "The Days After the Sock." And day 1 was about to take a turn I never saw coming. Because at 2:47 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating under the mattress. And I never put it there. At first, I thought it was a dream. You know that heavy, half-awake state where you can't tell what's real? The phone kept buzzing, faint and muffled, like a trapped insect under the bed. I reached down, my fingers brushing the cold metal edge, and when I pulled it out, my brain went blank. It wasn't my phone. It was hers. Marlo's phone. The same one she never let out of her sight. For a second, I just stared at it glowing in the dark, her lock screen a picture of our dog, Finn, from last summer. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I knew this was a line I couldn't uncross, but I also knew I was already standing on the edge of something that wasn't fixable. So I did it. I used her birthday as the code. She'd never changed it. The screen unlocked, and in that instant, I swear the air in the room got heavier, like the walls knew I was about to destroy something sacred. There were dozens of messages. Not from coworkers, not from friends, all from a single contact labeled E. No last name, just the letter. I scrolled up, and my stomach twisted. The first message I saw read, "Did he notice yet?" Then another, "You smell like his detergent. Be careful next time." And then one that stopped me cold. "Can't stop thinking about that weekend. Same place next month?" I dropped the phone onto the bed like it burned me. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like the room was shaking with it. I looked over at Marlo. She was asleep, peaceful, like none of it existed. For a second, I almost convinced myself I'd misunderstood. Maybe E was a friend. Maybe this was some inside joke. But no, there were photos. Blurry ones, taken at night. One of her reflection in a hotel mirror wearing the robe I'd given her for Christmas. One of 2 wine glasses. And one, God help me, of the same sock. I don't remember breathing for the next few minutes. I just sat there, phone in hand, feeling my world rearrange itself without my consent. Every conversation we'd had, every argument, every apology, it all started to play backward in my head, and suddenly, it all made sense. Every late night, every work dinner, every sudden burst of laughter in another room. It wasn't random. It was choreography. But here's the part that really broke me. Buried deep in their chat history, among the laughter and lies, was a voice memo. It was short, only 20 seconds. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. It was her voice, soft and warm, whispering, "He's still clueless. Poor thing. He'd probably thank you if he knew. Poor thing." I sat there until the sun came up, the phone screen dimming every few minutes as if trying to give me a chance to stop. But I didn't. I couldn't. I read every word, every timestamp, every emoji, until I felt like I wasn't a person anymore, just evidence. When she woke up, I was still sitting at the edge of the bed, holding the phone. She froze when she saw it. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, she didn't say a word. No lies. No laughter. Just silence. And that silence told me something worse than guilt ever could. She wasn't sorry. She was calculating her next move. I put the phone down, stood up, and said the only thing I could think of. "I hope he was worth it." She blinked once, twice, and then said quietly, almost to herself, "You weren't supposed to see that." And then she smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not embarrassed. A smile of someone who already knows the next chapter, while you're still trying to finish the last one. That was the moment I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. You'd think, after reading those messages and hearing her voice call me a poor thing, I'd yell. Throw something. Demand answers. I didn't. Maybe I should have, but when someone steals your dignity in slow motion over a year, you don't explode. You evaporate. I just stood there, watching her stretch her arms like she wasn't the villain in the room, like we'd just had a mild disagreement about milk, not reality. She walked into the bathroom without another word. I waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I started to think she was stalling, maybe texting him from the toilet. But then I heard her throwing up. Violently. That confused me. Was it guilt? Panic? An act? When she came out, her eyes were red. Not from crying. She didn't look broken. She looked tired. Like a CEO who just had to fire their favorite employee. She sat down across from me, wrapped herself in her robe, and said, "Lowell, can we please talk like adults?" Like adults. She said it like I was the one who'd been sneaking around, lying to someone who made her coffee every morning for 10 years. I didn't answer. She sighed, like this was all very inconvenient for her. Then she said the words I'll never forget. It wasn't about him. It was about me. I wanted to laugh in her face, but all I could do was blink. She went on. I felt invisible. You were so caught up in your routines, your bug reports, your rules. You stopped looking at me, lol. I needed to feel like I still mattered. Like I still existed. There it was. The justified villain's speech. The kind narcissists right in the mirror until they believe it. You could have told me you were lonely, I said, barely above a whisper. I tried, she snapped. I tried for months. You were never listening. I let that hang in the air. Not because I believed it, but because I was waiting. Waiting to see if she'd get to the part where she admitted it. Not the loneliness, the choice, the betrayal. But she never said it. Instead, she pivoted to the worst part of all, the rewrite. You know, I don't even think I was happy for years, she added, crossing her arms. Maybe you weren't either, deep down. I stood there stunned. She was retrofitting our history, taking a blade to our photo albums, scratching her face out of every memory so she could tell herself this had always been a slow-motion breakup. Like our road trip to Maine never happened. Like our nights reading on the couch didn't count. Like the dog we adopted together was a clerical error. So what now? I asked, because I had to say something. I don't know, she said with a shrug. Maybe this is good. Maybe we've both been holding on to something that stopped being real a long time ago. That broke me more than any admission could have. The cold, clinical way she took a decade of shared life and folded it into a mutual misunderstanding. As if I'd secretly been cheating too. As if this was symmetrical. I packed a bag that night. She didn't stop me. Didn't beg. Didn't cry. She just stood in the doorway, arms folded, saying nothing, like I was late for a flight she'd booked months ago. But here's where it got worse. Because it always gets worse, doesn't it? When I reached the car and opened the back to toss in my bag, I saw something half buried under Finn's old towel. Another sock. Same brand. Same size. Different color. And this one had my name stitched into the inside. But I'd never owned a pair like that in my life. I stood there in the driveway, staring at that sock like it was a loaded weapon. Same brand. Same frayed edge. But stitched inside the cuff in red thread, as neat as a factory tag, was my name, Lowell. All caps. Clean. Permanent. The first thing that hit me was confusion. A logical part of my brain tried to take over. Maybe it was a prank gift from a friend I forgot about. Maybe my mom sent it. Maybe some novelty store existed where you could customize clothing, and I'd drunkenly ordered them years ago and forgotten. But none of that explained the real problem. I had never seen these socks before. And now there were two. I didn't go back inside. I couldn't. I drove. Nowhere in particular, just away. The highway looked like it was stretching for miles in both directions, but I kept looping the same exits like I was trying to outrun my own questions. By the time I stopped for gas, it was already dark, and the idea of checking into a hotel made me feel like a ghost. Like I'd left a life behind, and no one had noticed it disappeared. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I laid in the back seat of my car at a rest stop, staring up at the ceiling liner, replaying everything. The sock. Her lack of panic. The way she tried to rewrite the past. And that voice memo. He'd probably thank you if he knew. That line had haunted me before, but now it took on new weight. Why would I thank him? What did they do? The next morning, I drove back to the house. Not to talk, not to yell, but to look. I waited until she left. Watched from down the street like a stalker in my own marriage. When her car pulled out, I gave it 5 full minutes, then walked in through the garage. She hadn't changed the code. That alone told me she still thought she had the upper hand. That I wouldn't come back. That I didn't matter anymore. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I moved through it like it belonged to someone else. The kitchen felt colder. Our bedroom smelled different. Like citrus and iron. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I'd know it when I found it. I started in the closet, pulling drawers, checking behind shoe boxes, feeling under piles of scarves she hadn't worn since 2019. That's when I found it. In the back corner of her top shelf, behind an old blanket from college, was a zippered pouch. Gray, plain, the kind that might hold makeup or receipts. Inside were photos. Printed ones. Not digital. Of me. Dozens of them. Some I recognized. Me at the stove cooking. Me mowing the lawn. Me laughing with Finn in the backyard. But others were not taken by her. One was from inside my office window. One from across the street when I was walking home from the store. One from inside my gym, standing near the lockers, completely unaware. These weren't memories. These were surveillance. My hands went numb. My knees buckled, and I had to sit down on the edge of the bed. I went through the pouch again and found more handwritten notes. About me. About my routines. My behavior. One line stood out, circled in blue ink. Still doesn't notice pattern shifting. Increase small disruptions. Gauge response. Disruptions? Gauge response. What the hell was this? Was this some kind of experiment? I flipped through more pages. My name was everywhere. With dates. Comments about my tone of voice. Emotional shifts. Reactions to changes in food, room layout, even lighting. This wasn't a diary. This wasn't guilt. This was a case study. Suddenly, the socks made sense. They weren't forgotten evidence. They were planted. Controlled variables. I put everything back exactly where I found it, zipped the pouch shut, and walked out of that house like I was escaping a lab. My home wasn't a home. It had been converted into something else, a controlled environment. And I was the unknowing participant in whatever twisted thing she had been building. That's when a horrifying thought hit me. What if he wasn't a lover? What if he was a partner? Not in cheating. In research. I didn't go back to the rest stop. I didn't even go back to the car. I walked, aimless, through the neighborhood like someone trying to shake off a bad dream, waiting to wake up in my real life. I passed the coffee shop where Marlo used to meet her friend Alex every Thursday. Except Alex had moved to Portland 8 months ago. Another lie. Another entry I'd missed. It was like the entire town had become one giant breadcrumb trail, and I'd just started noticing the pieces were leading somewhere I never agreed to go. I ended up at the public library. I hadn't stepped foot in that place since the year we moved, and I only went in because it was quiet and had a bathroom. But while I was there, sitting in one of those cracked armchairs near the oversized Atlas collection, I opened my laptop and started digging. The name E haunted me. I searched through her Instagram followers. No match. Her emails. Nothing useful. But then I remembered something. Her work Slack. Months ago, she'd left her laptop open while making tea, and I saw a message pop up from someone named Ephraim B. I remembered it because who the hell is named Ephraim anymore? I tried logging into her work Slack, but of course I didn't have her credentials. What I did have was her resume, saved on our shared drive from when she was job hunting last year. And it was the name of her employer, her manager's name, and, most importantly, the startup incubator that funded her eco-brand consulting firm. I found their website, their blog, and, buried in an announcement from last year, was a photo, a group shot of their second cohort of founders. There he was, Ephraim Bloom, mid-30s, wire-rimmed glasses, dead eyes, founder of something called Human House, a behavioral optimization lab focused on modern domestic ecosystems. The tagline below it read, "We don't test in labs. We test in life." I don't know how long I stared at that sentence. My ears were ringing. I read every word of that blog post, every line of his profile. It was all there, in polite, Silicon Valley sanitized language. Long-form studies on partner behavior, emotional volatility, reaction times to environmental manipulation. All real relationships. All immersive modeling environments. They were proud of it. Proud of building homes that weren't homes. Of taking people, real people, and studying them like ants in a jar. And suddenly, it all clicked. The notes. The planted socks. The voice memo. He'd probably thank you if he knew. Because to them, I wasn't a husband. I was data. I was a sample. I was a goddamn spreadsheet cell. I couldn't breathe. I slammed my laptop shut and went straight to the restroom to throw up, gripping the sink like it might save me from drowning. The worst part wasn't just the betrayal. It was that I knew, deep down, I had felt this. The way she looked at me like she was documenting, not loving. The way our arguments always escalated in the same direction, like someone was watching a variable run its course. I thought it was just distance. That maybe she didn't love me anymore. But the truth was colder. More calculated. She never stopped seeing me. She just stopped seeing me as a person. When I finally left the library, I didn't go to a hotel. I drove back to the house. Not because I wanted to confront her. I didn't even know if she was home. But because I needed to know if there were cameras. If I'd been filmed. If someone else had been watching all along. I walked into our bedroom and tore the place apart. Pulled the mattress off the frame. Dumped drawers. Checked air vents. Behind books. Inside hollowed out candles. Nothing. And then, as I was lifting the lid of our old record player stand, an antique we'd bought together at a flea market, I saw it. A lens. The size of a thumbtack. hidden in the corner, blinking red. I stared at it, and then it blinked once and stopped. I didn't touch the camera. I didn't rip it out of the record stand. I didn't even breathe too loudly. I just stood there, locked in place, staring at that dead little eye, that final insult to every quiet dinner, every touch, every whispered joke I thought was private. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just been betrayed. I'd been handled. Everything, the late-night whispers, the socks, the notes, was part of a live test environment. And I wasn't the control group. I wasn't even the subject. I was the proof of failure. When I heard the garage door open, I didn't run. I didn't hide. I sat down at the kitchen table, hands flat, face forward, and waited. I didn't have a plan. You don't plan for something like this. You just let instinct take over. Or you let the monster walk through the front door and decide whether you're prey or problem. She walked in like it was any other Tuesday. Hair tied up, grocery bag in one hand, her phone in the other. When she saw me sitting there, she froze. I didn't say anything. Not yet. She slowly put the bag down and gave me this unreadable look. Not fear, not guilt. Something more careful. A look you give a child holding a knife. Did you find something? She asked, as if we were picking through tax records together. I found everything, I said, my voice flatter than I thought it could be. She exhaled through her nose and nodded, like we were finally on the same page of a long, quiet novel. I was going to tell you, she said, stepping out of her shoes. Eventually. That almost made me laugh. Eventually. The same word people use for retirement plans and cancer results. I stood slowly and walked to the cabinet, pulled out a clean glass, filled it with water, and set it in front of her. She sat down but didn't drink. Was it Ephraim's idea? I asked. No, she said instantly. It was mine. I blinked. That wasn't the answer I expected. I pitched the project. He funded it. My mouth went dry. So he's not the one you were sleeping with? She tilted her head, almost offended. Ephraim? God, no. He's married. And ethically boring. Everything had to be documented. Cleared. Legal waivers. This wasn't some underground cult, lol. This was R&D. You wrote a waiver for me? She hesitated. Not exactly. Try again. She looked me dead in the eye. You were part of an observational environment. You weren't the subject. I was. I proposed the study to test whether prolonged emotional suppression in monogamous domestic structures causes behavioral collapse. You were the variable, the constant, the baseline. You're insane, I said, but even that sounded hollow now. I documented what I felt, what I did, how I adapted. You weren't being manipulated. I wasn't allowed to change you. That would have invalidated the study. But you did change things, I snapped. You left evidence. The sock. The notes, the lies, the goddamn camera in our record stand. Her face twitched, just once. Then she smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. It was the kind she used when customer service reps told her, "We can't refund this item without a receipt." That was your reaction being measured, she said. I was shaking now, not with rage, but with this cold, hollow disgust that felt almost like grief. I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at the version of her I used to love. The one that never existed. I looked around the kitchen, the photos on the fridge, the old tea mug she always used when she was anxious, the blanket on the couch we bought together on our 3rd anniversary. Was any of it real? I asked, almost whispering. She didn't blink. It started real, and then it became something better. Better. That word stuck in my throat like a shard of glass. She stood, finally drinking the water, as if this was the end of a difficult therapy session. Then she walked past me, toward the stairs. You're free to leave, you know, she said as she turned the corner. Technically, the study concluded 3 days ago. 3 days ago. That's when I found the first sock. The smile on her face when she saw it. That wasn't panic. That was satisfaction. I sat there for a long time after she was gone. I don't remember how long. I remember the silence. The weight of it. I remember the shadows on the walls and the hum of the fridge. I remember thinking this couldn't get worse. And then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It said, "Thank you for your participation, lol. Your insights were invaluable. Results publishing soon. Human House Research." For a long time, I just stared at the message on my phone. I read it over and over until the words blurred. Your insights were invaluable. Like I was a temperature reading. Like I was soil under a microscope. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just emptied out. I didn't respond. I didn't storm upstairs. I sat there in that house, that fake, staged environment they dared to call a home, and I let every single illusion collapse around me. And then I got up, grabbed my bag, and walked out the door. This time, I didn't look back. I stayed with an old college friend for a few weeks. No explanations. Just, it's over. She didn't ask questions. Sometimes all you need is someone to hand you a blanket and shut up. I slept. A lot. I stopped checking my email. I deleted social media. Every time a blocked number called, I let it ring out like a funeral bell for my old life. But then, something happened I didn't expect. A journalist reached out. Not someone from a tabloid or trashy blog, someone legit. Investigative. They said they'd received an anonymous tip about a behavioral startup conducting unethical live-partner trials. They wanted to talk to me. At first, I ignored it. The last thing I wanted was to relive it all in headlines. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about me. If I had been studied without consent, how many others had? How many subjects were out there, right now, still thinking they were just in a bad marriage or a dying relationship, when really they were part of some shiny Silicon Valley experiment? So I called the journalist back. I told them everything. Names, dates, notes, photos. I handed over copies of Marlo's documents, the footage from the hidden camera, screenshots of the texts, even the voicemail she accidentally left once when she forgot to hang up during a meeting with Ephraim. I didn't hold anything back, and the story broke. It was everywhere within a week. Human experimentation or innovation. The startup that treated marriages like labs. They tried to spin it, of course. Called it immersive empathy testing. Said everyone had signed NDAs. Said it was about unlocking deeper truths in emotional architecture. But the public wasn't buying it. They called it what it was: exploitation. Psychological manipulation wrapped in branding buzzwords. The fallout was immediate. Human House lost all its funding. Ephraim resigned. 2 lawsuits went public. Whistleblowers came forward. And Marlo? She disappeared. No dramatic apology. No letter. Not even a text. She deleted her accounts. Left her job. Vanished like a ghost who'd finally finished haunting the house. But I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. Because I wasn't her subject anymore. And slowly, painfully, I started building something new. Not a relationship. Not yet. Just a self. I moved cities. Found a small apartment overlooking a bookstore. Started writing again. Real writing, not code. I even adopted another rescue dog. Finn's gone now. Cancer. But I buried him under the oak tree near my new place. Wrapped him in the blanket she never touched. He was the only one who never lied to me. Sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night and hear silence, I panic. I think there's another lens blinking in the corner. But then I breathe. I remind myself where I am, and I remind myself that this life, this small, quiet, honest life, is mine. A few months ago, the journalist emailed me again. Said the story was nominated for an award. Asked if I wanted to give a closing quote for the final article. I sent one line. You can't fake love without eventually forgetting what real love feels like. They published it exactly as I wrote it. And now? Now I'm free. Really, truly free.